So hello to everybody on this call. My name is Tom Spate. I did speak to Jim G yesterday. I know exactly who Jim G is. Um, so this is where we get together. For those of you who've not been on this call before, we get together every Friday morning just to hear from people doing interesting things in the county and beyond. Someone from Argyll this morning. And a good chance just to chat about stuff as well. Feel free to bung questions, thoughts, reflections into chat too. And this recording will go up on the website probably by Tuesday of next week. So we always try and turn them around so that you get a chance to watch yourself again. And for people that can't make a Friday morning, which is some people, they can get a chance to see it as well. So that is the plan. But, it's a celebration to champion what's going on and just to find out about interesting stuff and all sorts of connections spin off from this call as well. So a good chance to make connections and network about people doing interesting things. So this morning is, as ever, no exception. Kate's just going to tell us what CACN's been doing over the past 7 days or so. We're going to hear from Leah Varnell, who's the Programme Director of Words by the Water, now in its 25th year at Theatre by the Lake in Keswick. Kicks off on the 11th of March. For transparency reasons, I am doing 3 of the interviews at the festival this year. I know Sue is doing a couple as well, if not a few more. We're then going to hear from David Kennedy from the Environment Agency and Caddy Catlow. I hope I pronounced your name correct there, Caddy, who together worked on a project to make an animation, which we're going to watch. It's about 3 minutes long. It's a beautiful animation about the story of why trees matter, basically. So just going to find out a bit about how that came about. How do you go about making an animation and why that was commissioned? And then we're going to hear from Jack Forgery Tatum, who is a wonderful artist in Cockermouth, runs the Marketplace Print Studio. If you've not been to that before, you really ought to go there with his partner, Emily. And Jack, who's also very much an artist in his own right as well, has a great looking new exhibition coming up at the Shipping Brow Gallery in Maryport, kicking off in the next week or so. So we're going to hear from Jack and see some of his images as well. And see what that's all about. Special hello to Caleb as well, Caleb Stapt, who you'll see on your screen, who, for those of you that have just joined the call, he's part of the advisory group that is working with See It to Be It, which is one of the projects that Cumbria Arts and Culture Network are working on at the moment. Hello, Christine, and Rachel. And Caleb is one of the advisory group members I met very briefly in Barrow a few weeks ago. And Caleb was just saying that they all got together at Eden Arts. We try and do things online most of the time, but sometimes get people face to face. And they had a good meeting. Was it a couple of nights ago, Caleb? I think it was at Eden Arts.
Yeah, Tuesday night.
And you came up all the way from Barrow, which is great, and had an interesting journey home by public transport and a bit of a lift as well. But anyway, you got home, which is the main thing.
Yeah, I'm in the house now, thankfully.
Great, okay. And we've got 2 Dereks on the call this morning, which is always a privilege and a pleasure. So hello to both Dereks. I don't think we've got any other doubling up names.
Good morning, Sir Thomas.
Good morning, Derek. Shame about the T20, but hey, it's not proper cricket anyway, so we'll move on from the cricket as well. Right, so let's kick off. Kate, you are our director. What has CACN been up to very briefly over the past week or so?
Yeah, did you notice how he starts with very briefly so that I don't get carried away? See It to Be It is our project that is all about helping young creatives build careers in Cumbria, and that is our biggest focus, but by no means our only focus at the moment. This week I was in Carlisle College meeting the head of the arts curriculum there. Here we are in a room full of bits of fabric. I was there to work out how we as a project and as CACN could go in more often and help them make sure that their students in the arts department understand the full range of options out there and how they can best prepare themselves for creative careers. So that's a whole strand of work that we'll be focusing on in coming months. Thank you. Please get rid of the picture. Then on Wednesday, I went to Millham to an Arts Council roundtable meeting. There we are. Really out of focus picture, but there was a load of people from arts organisations in West Cumbria where the Arts Council every so often hold these meetings in their priority places. It brings people together to just share what's going on and talk to each other and be able to join up better. So that was really useful as well. There's people there from the Beacon Museum, from everyone here, from Arts Council, from Knotted Project. The chap on the right with the beard is from Ravenglass Railway Museum. So there's a real mixture of people. It was very good. And then yesterday I went into Cockermouth School to talk to their year 10s as part of National Careers Week. And I did an assembly about creative careers and how to line yourself up best for a creative career. And I've had some interesting feedback this morning from um, from Chris Bridgman's partner Tish, who runs the youth theatre in Cockermouth. She said, some of my year 10 youth theatre kids were at your assembly at Cockermouth. They were initially very excited as they thought Katy Perry had come to talk to them.
Oh.
Anyway, after that confusion was cleared up, they said they really enjoyed it and said that for once they listened to an assembly. So I'll take that. Anyway, that's the kind of thing that we're up to at the moment, and notwithstanding the disappointment that I
You should be able to just
bring.
trot out a couple of lines from one of her big bangers.
Yeah.
Or talk about going to space.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the sort of thing that we're up to at the moment. And in addition to that, as you say, the advisory group for See It to Be It met at Eden Arts, and it was great that Caleb made that massive trek from Barrow to be there. So good on you for that. And it seems to have been a really good evening. That's me.
Great. So the helicopter is refueling as we speak to take you off to exciting places over the next 7 days as well.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for all you do for us, Kate, and representing the voice of Cumbria, sometimes in places where sometimes it gets lost in the Northwest, amongst other things as well. Right. Well, let's cross to Leah. Leah, are you in Devon or are you up in Cumbria yet?
No, I'm in Devon. I'm schlepping up to Cumbria on Monday. So
okay.
Looking forward to a fish and chip supper.
Leah is in charge of Words by the Water, a festival of words and ideas, it says on the programme next to me here. 25th anniversary this year. So for those of you that have not been to Words by the Water, it takes place at Theatre by the Lake in Keswick, usually over 5 or 6 days. And it's a remarkable pulling together of interesting people who have written interesting books. Leah was in charge of, so basically the theatre was taken over by Words by the Water for a few days. In fact, so much so this year, I'm on the board of Theatre by the Lake, and we've got a board meeting on Saturday. We can't actually have the board meeting in the theatre because it's all been taken over by Words by the Water. So we're having it in Keswick Museum instead.
I love it.
So Leah, we've got the programme which we're just going to pull up onto the screen now. Just give us a few highlights and tell us how it's shaping up this year, the festival.
Well, shaping up, it's back to pre-pandemic levels. So I think the future is fairly secure, which is really lovely. I'm out and about trying to round up active sponsors for next year, because I think you've got to have something fairly successful on your hands to kind of flog to businesses and things saying, look, why don't you support us? But I feel really confident. Actually, I feel really panicked. I've already had a meeting about the festival this morning, and I've got another one very shortly. But one of the things I'm really pleased about that we're not going to make a single penny from is the launch of the kind of Young Cumbrian Writers Awards. And it's from primary to the end of secondary is the bandwidth of the competition, and it was a 500-word short story around the theme Lost. And I made it really clear I was too busy to judge, but then I ended up having to, because that's life. And I've got to say, Cumbria's got a lot of emerging talent in its youth. It was a real privilege to read them, so I'm quite glad I did get roped in to judge the thing. And we've got 180 kids coming in on day one, event one, and so I already feel slightly exhausted just at the thought of that and how they all go to the loo. But anyway, but if anyone wanted to join us for that, I would be absolutely delighted. It's a free event, and it's a really exciting kind of celebration of Cumbrian emerging talents in terms of writing. So yeah, we've got lots of prize winners, and we're giving awards to teachers, because without teachers, you don't get the young talent coming through, do you? So I listed a few, very few events because I need to hop off and excuse me because I need to hop off and this is my to-do list for the day. But I need to hop off and do the to-dos. Events I wanted to highlight, and before I started talking about events, I really want to doff my cap to Gwenda Matthews, who obviously isn't going to be there, because in no small part is this programme her vision. So I'm only going to talk about events that directly relate to Cumbria. We've got lots of famous names coming in, like Prue Leith and I don't know, Lee Child.
There's Barbara. There's Barbara just going through there on the Generation Game conveyor belt that Iona is flying. Barbara, of course, is on this call.
Yes, and Tom Palmer, who he's doing a wonderful workshop on children, how to write children's fiction. So it's for adults, but it's about how to write. So we've really expanded the workshop element of the festival because the festival is about learning and going from the known to the unknown. No, from the unknown to the known. So taking yourself out of your comfort zone. So we've got loads, but I've highlighted a few. Tom Palmer was one of the ones I was going to talk about. There's some bloke called Stephen Matthews, Gwenda's husband, who's got an event going on, but he's written an anthology of sonnets about Rembrandt. And another very special event for us is this Cumbrian Women event, which celebrates female writing, but all of the female writers are Cumbrian, and they're going to be talking about how the landscape influences their work and all that kind of stuff. But it's in memory of Gwenda and Kay Dunbar, who was the founder of the festival. We've got Lakeland Dialect event 10 in the programme, that talks about Grasmere. Julian Cooper is coming, who is a wonderful artist, and the post person gave me the book because I get the books, and it took the parcel off him, and it's a huge book. It's absolutely beautiful, and his work is very much about landscape and mountains and lots of the fells and things. Lakeland Dialect, yes. Sarah Hall and Andrew Miller are event 3, and they're also going to sell out, I think, but they're about writing from the land. So we've really tried to give the festival a kind of balance between famous people, and with
you've got Lee Child and Sarah Vine on the screen there.
Yeah,
famous people.
John Crace is completely sold out. We write it from the Guardian. And in fact, on my to-do list, which is delightful, is create sold out strips so that we can stick it over posters, which is the opposite of what happened in the pandemic when we had to write cancelled stickers for everything. But yeah, I'd encourage everyone to come along and get involved however you can. We're always looking for volunteers, drivers, photographers, people that would help at the desk, all that kind of stuff, because the festival is only as strong as its team. And it's been wonderful working. Oh, there are the Cumbrian women. So yeah, we've got Sarah Hall, Mary Elsa, obviously, who is the festival president. Lots of people. Anthony Selden, I see there, is a wonderful kind of philosopher and thought-provoking person talking about peace and talking about pilgrimages. So yeah, and dear old Bonners down there at the bottom of the screen, Bonington, Sir Chris Bonington, as he's actually known, talking about climbing Everest. I think it was 40 years ago, his first ascent and successful descent. So yeah, and I think this is going to be Chris's last live event. So the festival finale is quite exciting.
And how are ticket sales going, Leah?
Unbelievably well, which is really fabulous. there is a real thirst for knowledge and debate and discussion. And I think that's what the festival is providing, and hopefully will continue to provide for the next 25 years. So that's something I want to go to, the bookbinding workshop. I'm really interested in that, but I can never extract myself long enough from the work of the day to go to a whole workshop. And there's Becky Cole, who is doing a free children's event with Digby Storytelling Time. It's always very loud and raucous, and it's happening in the Circle Gallery. So if you've got children, grandchildren, they should come along and see Becky, because it's always great fun. Again, I'd like to go to that. In fact, I want to go to everything in the festival.
What's the rough lead-in time, Leah, for Words by the Water 2027? Are you starting to book people for that already, or does that take place once you've got this one out of the way?
Yeah, no, I'm already on that one, and we're looking. Yeah, the publishers are pitching for it already, which is really good. It means that the name is known and is back in people's consciousnesses, having had, a lull. But yeah, I think, and we're thinking about we're working on, or I'm working on, a friends scheme where people could join for a nominal fee and get early bird tickets, because there's so many sold out events that people are getting frustrated they can't get a ticket. So it's the year to roll out a kind of loyalty kind of scheme, I think. So that's what's rattling around my head. It won't be ready to launch by the festival, but we could start publicizing it. I need to work out what the perks are. But yeah, it's I couldn't be more, well, I couldn't be more tired, but I couldn't be more excited. And I'm gonna have to hop off because I've got another meeting. But again, I just want to kind of extend public acknowledgement of Gwenda.
Yeah, we love Gwenda, and Sue gave a very nice tribute to Gwenda on this call about a month ago, probably now. It was lovely. We saw lots of pictures of Gwenda in full flight, including I think 1 or 2 at Words by the Water. Barbara, I'm just going to put you on the spot. Are you ready for your... Is this your Words by the Water debut, Barbara, or have you done stuff there before?
No, first time. And I have to say that it was, I don't know, late autumn time that I met her, or bumped into Gwenda, actually, who I've known for years. And it was her that approached me about doing a workshop. And I think also it's short form fiction. You often get poetry type workshops, but I'm doing a fiction one. And we're hoping, I'm just actually, all the stuff's on the table behind this laptop. I'm just busy finishing off preparing, really excited about it. And I'm hoping that the participants, I'm hoping that we're going to create a zine from the work that we do. So I'm really into the whole idea of zines and things. And lovely that Tully now are having zine fests. So yeah, the plan will be, hopefully, if my participants are up for it, we're going to create a zine from the work that we do.
Fantastic. That sounds great. What great ambition. And Sue, have you read your books? I know you're chairing in 1 or 2 sessions. Have you read your books yet?
Not finished.
What?
Not finished.
Which is the one you're most looking forward to, Sue?
So this weekend I've got to finish the Prue Leith book and read Zacchaeus Sewell's book on finding Albion. But I've read Mike Craven's and Ellie Griffith's crime novels, and I've read Stephen Ray's Cumbrian Folklore. Those are the 4 I'm doing.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Okay.
You know, I'm an ex-teacher, Sue. I expect you to do your homework.
God. Well, Steve Matthews does his very late, later than me, so I'm not the latest.
All right. Well, congratulations, Leo, on pulling it all together. I hope things run smoothly. I'm sure they will. Thank you for talking us through some of the highlights this morning.
If anyone in this group wants to get involved in any way with the festival, we'd be delighted to welcome them, because it's about celebrating Cumbria and celebrating writing.
All right. Do you want to just stick your contacts, Leah, into chat before you go? And catch you again next week. All right.
All right. See you, Tom. See you, Sue.
Thank you, Leah.
Barbara.
Right. Thank you very much indeed. That's it's going to be good, and it's going to be a smorgasbord of delights, I suspect. I know, Derek. Also, you've done driving at Theatre by the Lake for Words by the Water, haven't you?
Yes, and I am again next week.
Oh, you are? Okay, great.
So, watch out on the roads.
The hotline between Penrith and the theatre, Penrith railway station and the theatre. Derek Cannon will have a police escort for his convoy along the A66.
Oh, somebody with a red flag on
it. Well, let's move from a book festival to this beautiful animation that I've been talking about, which we're going to see in its full glory. It's about three minutes long, something like that. So let me welcome you to the call David Kennedy, who works for the Environment Agency, living just outside Penrith there. He's got a magnificent T-shirt on, which we might talk about in a second. And also Caddy Catlow, who's up there in Argyll, north of the border, who is, I think you describe yourself as an animator and director. Is that right, Caddy?
Yeah, I try to be, yeah.
Okay, all right. So we'll explore how all this came about, and then we'll have a look at the animation, and then we'll chat about it off the back as well. So Dave, let's go to David first of all. David, you work for the Environment Agency, but also have interest, obviously, in Cumbria Wildlife Trust. So just tell us a bit about yourself and how this animation came about.
So it's a product of COVID lockdown, if I'm perfectly honest. I was running an NFM program up in Cumbria, a £2.5 million delivery program of delivering natural flood management across the county. We had plans to do all sorts of engagement afterwards about how we would talk about what we found, what worked, what didn't work, all that kind of thing. And of course, we couldn't do that because everybody was shut in their houses. So it was, how do we get a message out there in a really engaging way to a wide audience? And how can we do that when we can't sort of physically be anywhere near each other? So it's kind of a mixture of sort of remembering things that I'd liked as a child, like Magic Roundabout and Creature Comforts and other things, and thinking, okay, how could I use a vehicle like that to do some delivery? And, kind of wrote the thing in lockdown. We recorded the audio in a spare room with ventilation, and for people that were brave enough to come and do that sort of thing, all within the rules and everything at the time. And I wanted to really use some Cumbrian sort of talent, and I did what everybody does when you're trapped in a room with nowhere else to go, and I kind of Googled kind of Cumbrian animators, and I was lucky enough to find a reference to Caddy, and all the creativity and all the energy and just insight that she brought to it is what's made it a success, quite frankly. I mean, I may have written the sort of technical parts and bits of the script and things like that, and I may have enabled the funding and things, but
and voiced it, David, to be fair.
Okay, yeah, bits in places where we've had to, where people have had to kind of back out, yes. But the bringing those things to life is what Caddy does, and she does it incredibly well. And I think that the testament to that is that with the films that we've done, and the film that we're talking about here, which is on squirrels, and the benefits of trees in flooding, is one of 4 films in the series, and it's the second series. Both of those series have won awards, and with this current series, we're at film festivals at the last count that I did. So pretty incredible.
Right, well, better watch it first of all, and then Caddy, I'll come back to you with a couple of questions if I may. But Caddy, just tell us before we play it. You are Cumbrian, right? But you're up in Scotland now.
I am actually Cumbrian. I just struggle to stay one place longer than 6 months is the issue. Yeah, permanent nomad. I am actually Cumbrian. That was why I flagged up on David's Google search. I had a studio with my 2 sisters, Lynn, who's in the call, and Bryony, and we used to make a lot of stop motion back in the 90s and early 2000s, and then we sort of went our own separate ways a little bit. So I've sort of lost the accent slightly, but my sisters still have it. So I'm going to use my twin sister as the anchor to Cumbria at the moment then.
All right, okay. Lovely stuff. Yeah. All right, so let's watch the film and come back to you in a second.
Okay.
Hiya, I'm Twiggy. You might think I'm a bit nuts, but I think trees are tremendous. I'd love to show you how woodlands aren't only a home for me and thousands of other species. They can reduce the impact of storms and reduce flooding in a variety of ways too. How brilliant is that? We all know that the leaves and branches slow down the rainwater hitting the ground. That's why people and animals instinctively shelter under trees when it's raining. But did you know that with the right weather conditions like wind and humidity, trees can even evaporate some of the rain back up into the sky? Amazing, right? Even in big storms, it can be as much as 10%. Trees increase the ground's ability to soak up water too. Their roots spread out through the soil and loosen it up, increasing infiltration by as much as 5 times. Trees also suck up water from the ground to help them live and grow and release spare water to the atmosphere. This is called transpiration, and it's essential for plant growth. Some big old trees can suck up over 500 litres a day. This gives drier soils the ability to take in more water. So if you had enough trees in a catchment, you could reduce river flow during storms by up to 10%. This could help save people's homes from being flooded.
Tell them more, Twiggy.
What, you want even more facts? How about these? Deciduous trees, the ones which lose their leaves in the winter, like oak and beech, help purify water as well as the air. They help regulate temperatures too. It can be as much as 10 degrees centigrade cooler under a tree on a hot day, making it lovely and shady for people and animals, whilst also reducing the impacts of droughts. Deciduous woodlands can provide amazing habitats for a wide variety of creatures like me. And some trees, like big old oaks, can be home to over 2,000 different species.
Don't forget me.
Yes, you're hard to forget, aren't you? During its life, a tree can lock away a lot of carbon. Some, like giant redwoods, can store up to 250 tonnes. So they are really important in helping us reduce the impact of climate change. Those were all happy facts, but I've got a sad one too. The UK has some of the lowest amount of woodland cover in the whole of Europe, with only 12% of our land covered by trees.
Wow, only 12%?
I know. The European average is about 35% woodland coverage. So you know what I think, don't you?
Huh.
Yeah. Let's all plant more trees. Cheers! Now, where did I bury my nuts?
Lovely stuff. And as you watch the credits roll through, you get to realize how many people are involved in making a 3-minute or 3.5-minute animation come together. It's an amazing collection of people, an amazing number of people as well. Beautiful stuff. Really, really beautiful stuff. So, Caddy, congratulations on a beautiful little film, first of all. Tell us how do you go about making that?
Well, how? We start, the COVID ones were a little bit of a different story because it was a little bit difficult to get on the sets together and things. But on the squirrel one, which was probably a bit more of a normal way of making something, we start with the scripts, and then we get the voices recorded, and we look through the scripts, we decide on the best settings, the characters that are going to be delivering the words, how old they should be, all these sorts of things, male, female, that kind of thing. So we get those built. Building the puppets takes about a month and a half to get the sets and the puppets built. That's pretty flat out, to be honest, because there's a lot of details, a lot of technical stuff that goes on inside a puppet. It's not just a squirrel, it's got lots of mechanisms inside so you can animate it properly. So there's a lot of invisible building, which is always a little bit depressing when people go, how long does it take to build that thing? And it just looks like a squirrel. I think, but inside the squirrel, if you cut it in half, there's quite a lot. So there's a lot of time going on, sets, and we always have the backdrops painted. The idea for the films was to make it look a little bit like a museum diorama. That's always been the kind of design aesthetic of it. To sort of make it look like a museum exhibit, sort of come to life a little bit, because I have a bit of a thing about dioramas. I do like a diorama. So we started with that and a kind of like a nature sketchbook for the 2D sort of science, because what we were trying to get away from was the kind of clinical corporate sort of smooth CGI look that a lot of the commercials, they have a certain look, and it's very sort of clip art kind of style. And we were trying to make it look very handmade, very sort of natural, really, or so trying to deliver a message that felt kind of more honest and more trustworthy because it was handmade. There's that kind of connection with that. So we were sort of trying to make everything look as handmade as possible because it was. Painted the backgrounds by hand. Sets were built by hand. So we have sets built, we light them, we shoot. For each film took a week to shoot, which is a crazy fast amount of time to shoot a few minutes in. So we work very, very hard, to be honest. And then we edit it all up. The 2D comes in separately because we have an idea early on which sections are going to be 2D, and that's usually the most scientific bits, the bits about erosion, or whenever there's a big scientific word that pops up, we try and illustrate the big scientific word, because we don't like to take the scientific word out, because we feel like if you're just going to be patronizing people by, using that kind of ladybird book style stuff, it kind of turns people off. So we try and leave the big words in, but illustrate what they mean.
And David, so just to cut a question, David, am I right to think you helped write the script? Is that right?
Yeah. So I start off by kind of collating all the kind of relevant bits of sort of technical information, and I have to double check that against what the latest research is. So I probably start off with a script that's probably sits at about 7,000 or 8,000 words, and we have to get it down to, well, we kind of aim at 600, but I think I've missed on every single one. So we probably sit at about sort of 700-800 maybe by the time we've done it. And I try to put it into, then we need to kind of think of characters that kind of will be engaging. And Caddy and I have a lot of conversations about, I might kind of go, oh, well, what if we use a seal? And Caddy goes, you can't have a seal talking to a Sandler's because the scale thing's all off the chart. And I have to kind of go rethink it and go, okay, what else is similar? But could be a bit expressive. We've done a few fish, and people don't gravitate towards them in the same way. So we start off, and then I reduce it down to about sort of 700-800 words, and then with a lot of help from Caddy, we turn it into like a conversational style, and we try to make it a little bit humorous where we can. So I mean, that's a weakness of mine, putting in daft puns and things like that. So this woodpecker over here that we called Gregory, which probably only.
I was going to say, tell us a bit about you've actually got the model there.
So this is one of, and this is kind of gives you an idea of just how amazing the detail is. I mean, if it wasn't for the eyes, you would think that this is just an actual real one that's been stuffed. But this has been made by the brilliant team that Caddy pulls together and the model makers. But I mean, this is so accurate. The feet, which are this is a really geeky thing, but how woodpeckers hold on to things with their four claws is called a zydactyl foot, and this has got zydactyl feet. That's how incredible it is. But and they use all of this to animate it. But this just shows, and this is life size. This is accurate. This is, you've got that RSPB T-shirt on today. You probably have one of these on it somewhere. I would suspect if we were able to look closely. So it just gives an idea of the detail that this goes to, and this is true of all of the sets. The detail is phenomenal.
And obviously, you, David, you've decided that an animation is a way of getting a message across.
Yeah, partly because of that ability, as Caddy was describing, to be able to jump between something that you have effectively like a narrator animal like this, and then you have the 2D ability to be able to explain some of the difficult parts of the science or the complex things. How do you explain transpiration or evaporation? If I try to explain to you that, I mean, there's a dictionary definition, but there's a lot of people at the end of it that'll kind of go, certainly me, I would kind of go, I'm not too sure I'm any clearer. But if we animate it and it's got the words together, it becomes clearer. I think it's partly a reflection of me. I think I'm quite I understand things in a visual way better than I do if I kind of read a lot of textbooks and things. So it's about that. And this is why having a team like the one that Caddy brings together and her sisters that worked on this, which was super cool, is so brilliant, because they literally bring kind of what could be like dry material to life.
Also, I think the use of using animals as well is less. People have less barriers, because I think at the moment, particularly things like climate change, it shouldn't be controversial, but it is, and I think people are more likely to listen to a message if it's delivered in a way that doesn't feel like a lecture. It's not, an old white academic. It's like there isn't any extra baggage with it. So I feel like the message can just be a pure message on its own without coming with the kind of, well, who is delivering the message, which always seems to feed into this problem, is that people are quite resistant to knowledge if the wrong person is delivering it. So it kind of removes that, and it
breaks
makes
down those barriers, doesn't it? Yeah. If anyone's got any questions, by the way, for Caddy or for David, then put them in the chat. Caddy, did you go to school in Cumbria?
Didn't go to school at all.
Okay. How did you end up? How did you end up becoming an animator?
Hobby really. We had a Super 8 camera when I was about 7 or 8, and we used to make little films running around with sisters, and we got one roll of film a month. This is back in the day of film cartridges, and we worked out if you get one roll of film a month, you should animate it because you can go through it slower. It makes your roll of film last an awful lot longer if you click through it rather than just blow the 3 minutes in, running around in front of it. So we just started with Lego really, and then started to make short films. And then in the late 90s, it was kind of easier to get known because not many people were doing it. So we were with the weird sisters in the hay barn, because everybody else was in London or in Bristol, doing like their serious stuff, and then we were the weird ones, and that sort of attracted a bit of attention. So we ended up getting people like Saatchi and Saatchi wanting adverts made by us, which was a bit odd because we were teenagers at the time. I think these days there's no way that's ever going to fly, but at the time it was just a sort of strange. We started in film, and it was that time when equipment was kind of difficult to get hold of and difficult to learn how to use, and that meant that not many people did it. And then once it went digital, then everyone could do it. So the marketplace, suddenly there's loads of people who just do it now. So it's kind of harder to get a name for it, harder to be recognized unless you do something a little bit out of the ordinary, which is what I like doing. But yeah, so we started that way really, just making films and accidentally going in through the back door, I think.
And the creature comfort style, if I can call it that, the creature comfort style of animation, which obviously people became familiar with when they were passed all over the BBC for various campaigns or whatever. You're right, what you were saying earlier about how if you can, do it as an animal, it sort of works, doesn't it?
Yeah, it kind of removes all the prejudices that people have, and the kind of people are very resistant to science. Well, not to say everybody's, but the people you want to reach are, because there's no point reaching the people who already know and they're aware of it and they can find it in other ways because they're interested and they're engaged. We're trying to reach the ones who are resistant to it because that's the point. So trying to find a way in where it's being delivered in a way that they're not going to expect and doesn't come with all that baggage of it, looking like a professor in front of a load of books and all these things that maybe put people off, because they kind of
also to reach people that don't know about it, because although it's some of this stuff is literally as old as the hills, because we've just undone stuff because we're human beings and it's what we do. But all of this stuff is just part of the landscape, and it's just understanding how that landscape can work for you or work against you depending on what you're doing in the situation. And it's always a bit of a double-edged sword. Something that can be good for one thing might be bad for something else, and it's always trying to find a balance. But so it's just trying to kind of like talk to people about something that they may have heard about, sort of natural flood management, but not really understood kind of exactly what it means. Because to be fair, it's a really broad church. It's everything from planting trees and peat restoration to re-meandering rivers where they may have been straightened in the past for reasons like mill power and things like that, or storing water in places where you can to reduce the impact to communities. And communities kind of gravitate around water because we used to have to go and fetch it in a bucket, and now you don't have to do that, but communities still are around water, and a lot of communities are at the confluence of rivers. So that kind of the reason that communities ended up there is now also the reason that they suffer a little bit. And because we've now got the impacts of climate change, and the predictions for climate change are pretty grim, to be honest. That we're going to get a lot more water, and it's not like we're not exactly known for being quite dry already. So
I love the use of, even though it's an animation. Sorry to cut across you, David. I love the use of sound in that film as well. The sound of the woodpecker, obviously, but the sound of the bird song in the background. An animation is about sound as well as what you see, isn't it?
Textures. It's the layers that Caddy and her team build up. It's pretty amazing. I mean, you guys were talking about Theatre by the Lake earlier, and the the book event there. On the 21st of March, we are very privileged to have been included in the CACN Film Festival. So we're in the we're up for a Golden Osprey, which would be incredible. And
for these animations, David, right?
Yeah, so this is there's a short film category, and it's being held at Theatre by the Lake on the 21st of March. I think there's still tickets available. It's a great film festival, and there's lots of different screenings, and it goes out as far as Reg Ed and places like that. But that's just an idea of one of the festivals that we've been at. It. So, you know, this thing, what's been interesting for me for this film is how it's played in other countries as well. So, like I said, we've been in 25 countries, not physically us, but the film has. And what's been interesting is the stuff that's resonated has been the message, and also some of what I would have thought would have been slightly more difficult, that kind of quirky English humor, like where did I bury my nuts? Like that kind of stuff is the stuff that has translated and that people have come up. You know, I happened to go to one in Spain because it was near to where I was on holiday, and I just thought, let's go down for a day or two and have a look at this film festival. And people were coming up to me afterwards going, "It's tremendous," you know. So which is amazing, really, because you know it's a Catalan film festival.
Fantastic.
I quite like the fact it's on tour a lot as well. So it's not just like certain people go to certain sort of, they're like people who like going to festivals, but if it tours, it goes into schools and things as well. And I think that's a nice thing, is that children they watch it, they get engaged with the schools, they come home, they talk to their parents about it, it sort of spreads the message. So it's on tour at the moment in Nova Scotia, and it's just been on tour in Thailand, I think, as well, which is really nice. Yeah. So even though it's a very local little Cumbrian thing, it's doing a lot, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting at the minute, which is quite nice.
So, and yeah. David, your voice is the woodpecker, have I got that right?
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be, but
it is.
Yeah,
in every film, it's like Stanley. Yeah.
Stand on my in or banging my head against a big wooden plank. Probably a metaphor for something. But when we first recorded the voice that we were going to use for it, it was a female voice, and so.
We try to have contrast. We try and have like a male voice, a female voice, or an old voice. We try and contrast the voices up as much as possible. But we don't always know who we're going to get, because the actual voices, I don't think we mentioned it, the voices are actually scientists who work in the field. So they're not actors. The squirrel, you can't really tell because he did an absolutely phenomenal job. But actually, they are always flood defense scientists, aren't they, David? People who
either that or they're specialists in that kind of field. So, you know, even if they're not necessarily working on, you know, she works on the Wild Horse Water Project. So, you know, that's all about planting more trees and rewilding.
I know what they're talking about. Yeah.
So, you know, you get, there's an authenticity to that, which I think is really important.
Yeah. All right. Great. Well, thank you ever so much for sharing that with us, David and Caddy, this morning. I'm intrigued by the Three Bears animations, which clearly Sue remembers from some time ago, which I suspect was probably one of your earlier films, Caddy.
That was the name of our studio a long time ago. We were in Kirby Stephen, which Lynn still actually lives there, don't you, Lynn? And I almost moved there actually last month. I almost looked at a house to rent right next. It was literally underneath the studio that we used to have 20 odd years ago. Wow. And I wasn't quite sure if that was I was going to do. Yeah,
good luck with the continued distribution of this, which sounds like amazing to hear where it's got to, Nova Scotia, Thailand, etc., etc.
Yeah, we're just making it now, so we're just in the middle of production on the next.
Great. All right. Well, thank you ever so much.
Coastal, so very different.
Let us know when it's ready, because I'd love to see it again on this call.
We'll be later this year, we hope. And we're just going to have a look at when we launch and things like that. Because you know, if you talk about flooding and things like that, you don't really launch things like that in the middle of summer, because people go, "What the hell are you doing?"
All right. Well, thank you ever so much. And let's move now, finally, for the call this morning, to the off the northwest coast of Scotland, which is where Jack Fraudry Tatum did some amazing artwork. I don't know when you did it, Jack, but what I do know is that your exhibition of the produce of all that work and that visitation is coming together for a new exhibition at the Shipping Brow Gallery in Maryport, opening next week. And we've got some lovely slides, which we're going to show of some of your images. So if you'd just like to introduce yourself, Jack, first of all, to people that don't know you. I know you very well. What are you doing in with a sporran around your waist? and a beret on your head. There's probably a more technical Scottish name than that. And who is that woman next to you, and where are you?
So yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for inviting me on here. So yeah, I'm Jack, and that is a picture of me and my partner Emily outside our print studio in Cockermouth, which is just celebrated its 2-year birthday. And I talked about it 2 years ago when I was invited on here. And we offer workshops and create artwork, mainly prints from the studio. And it's open to anyone to come in. Emily will be there right now. And yeah, but I'm on here to talk about my upcoming exhibition at Shipping Brow Gallery. So I should say it's inspired by the islands of St Kilda, which are the most westerly archipelago in the British Isles. They're about 50 miles off Lewis and Harris, which if you don't live on Lewis and Harris, are quite far away places normally if you're anywhere else in Britain. So yeah, they're already a faraway place from an already quite remote place. So I was inspired by it. Unfortunately, I did apply for some funding last year to try and go, and I didn't get the funding. So I never ended up going physically, but I have read a lot of books about St Kilda, and I have kind of made a whole body of work inspired by the idea of St Kilda, I suppose. So it's more of a kind of maybe overly romanticized version of what I imagine life was like on St Kilda. And yeah, so I'll come to that a bit more. I'll explain maybe a little bit more about this picture, because I grew up in London mainly, and I've only lived in Cumbria for the last 3 years, but I was born in Scotland and I have a lot of Scottish family, mainly in Edinburgh. This is actually me dressed up for Burns Night in January. So hence the kilt and sporran, and Tam O'Shanter is the name of that hat. But yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, we could go to the next slide maybe. So this, for anyone that doesn't really know about St Kilda, you can see on this little map at the top how far it is off the Outer Hebrides. It's about 50 miles west from Lewis or Harris, the bottom of Lewis, and it's about 500 miles from Maryport if you were going to charter a boat. But I had heard that potentially there could have been boats that kind of maybe went from Maryport. There obviously was, when shipping was much bigger thing, that it seems quite remote now, that bit, but actually it was a bit of a highway. And so although never as kind of visited as other places, it would have had people going by. And there is accounts of St Kildans from about 150 years ago going to live in Lancaster for a bit. So yeah, it maybe wasn't as remote as it maybe seems now. So I should just give you a little bit of history of St Kilda. So it had been inhabited for thousands of years. There's like Iron Age remains, some even older, and it was permanently inhabited all the way up until the 1930s, when it was evacuated by the kind of British government, essentially, because the population had reached such a small number that there was a kind of variety of factors that kind of led to it happening. I suppose like a government that felt more responsibility for its citizens, and then also like a population that had kind of dwindled. I suppose the modern world, they lived in quite a kind of crofting, in some ways, quite compared to maybe the people in the cities and governments, like a very kind of basic way of life. And so it was maybe seen as like their duty to kind of evacuate them. And some people kind of wanted to go and some people didn't. But they lived, you can maybe go to the next slide, please. They lived there as an incredible, like a kind of, it was a very rough and kind of extreme way of living it, you can imagine, on these remote islands. So the next few slides are just going to be just going through some of the paintings I've done. So that one of the dandelion is there's an actual type of dandelion that has evolved there that is unique to St Kilda, and there's quite a lot of its fauna and animals and things that have kind of become unique. So there's a St Kildan wren, and there's a St Kildan house mouse and a St Kildan field mouse that have like evolved to be their own subgroup of species, but they're interesting. Most of them were actually kind of probably brought by the humans. And something like dandelions, they like live very much in often where humans are because they love disrupted soil. So dandelions and humans have a very symbiotic relationship. And this specific one had kind of evolved on St. Kilda. So yeah, there's kind of interesting things happen on this small island. So the next slide, yeah, is just they did a lot of knitting, and this is a kind of imagined version of maybe one of the people that lived there. There's a kind of Viking longboat in the background. The Vikings went to and from St. Kilda a lot and brought the first sheep and things there. So you can go to the next slide. The men traditionally went foraging for seabirds, and their diet was nearly solely on seabird eggs. So they ate gannets, fulmars, and puffins. A delicious broad range of seabirds. Tom might show his t-shirt again. There might be any of those animals on there. I don't know, but now St Kilda is run by the bird charity. It might be RSPB or I can't remember, but now the birds are all protected by the humans. But when the St Kildan people lived there, they killed and ate like thousands of them on a kind of mass scale. The population of birds supported itself, but they did kill a hell of a lot, which they ate. They ate their eggs, and they also gathered feathers to. They actually the people had to also pay rent. There was a kind of landlord on the Outer Hebrides, MacLeod, I think his name was. But yeah, so they did have to pay a rent, and like a kind of feudal rent. They didn't have money, but they had to pay in feathers and things. So I'm drawn to the islands because they're both fascinating, like naturally, as with the animals and the landscape. They're beautiful and rugged, and they have these amazing, teeming with life in lots of ways. Then you've got the humans kind of clinging on to life there in a fascinating way. But then also they are also it's also about society and society on the edge, and they were still kind of they were paying rent, and they were kind of subjugated by kind of a bigger power. They kind of, in lots of ways, they kind of reflect society, the broader society, even though they seemed so kind of distant. They're kind of tiny version of society in a way, but in a kind of rawer form. So yeah, I'm quite fascinated by that element of it as well. So yeah, this is just many pictures showing you each one kind of could be slightly explained, but you're kind of hopefully getting a little flavor of trying to bring out the characters. And there's a big gannet. Now it's the largest gannet tree in Northern Hemisphere, I think, or even in the world. It's just gone over. The Bass Rock on the East Coast used to be the biggest, but now the St Kilda gannet tree is the biggest. Yeah, so amazing place. And this is me doing some research. Unfortunately, not managing to get to St Kilda, but the wildlife park at Bathunthwaite has some soy sheep, which I went and drew. And the sheep so the St Kilda is an archipelago, and there's about four big-ish islands. They're about 3 miles wide, the biggest one, the main one, and then there's a few littler ones around. And there's feral sheep that the Vikings would have brought hundreds of years ago, but on each island they've developed into their own subspecies. So there's an island called Boré, and then there's an island called Soy. I might be pronouncing them wrong, but they have 2 distinct types of sheep. And so I've kind of painted them. One's got a white coat and one's got a brown coat, and this is a soy sheep that I'm feeding and drawing here. So yeah. So
I know. Can you just go back to the image of the chap with the big beard? That one. That's lovely, Jack.
So that's one of the books I've read about St Kildan's. This is Finlay. He was one of the last kind of big characters of the island, and he had a stuffed puffin that he would kind of walk around with. But they also ate puffins constantly, and there was always apparently lots of dried puffins in their houses, and they would build these amazing kind of stacks that were like outdoor larders that they would wind dry puffins. So then once they're in the later months, when it was in the winter, they would eat kind of wind dried puffins, which I don't know if will ever kick off again as a trendy dish, but yeah, A lot of, I bet they were stinky. I should also say that because they did so much climbing, the men in particular developed like incredibly big wrists and ankles and kind of swollen feet because they spent all their time kind of climbing up and down sheer rock faces. And so they kind of morphed to the landscape as well. Yeah.
Jack, Chris asks, what's the story of the Weeping Girl, which is one of the earlier images that we saw?
Yeah, so life on the island's quite tough, and there was lots of terrible kind of outbreaks of colds, and because they were an isolated community, if they ever did have visitors come in, they would bring like the common cold or other kind of infectious diseases, and it would wipe out quite a big parts of the island, and especially the infants had this thing like a cough. And the babies would be born, and then within days they would develop a cough and die, and they had a huge problem with this. She's actually got in her, and she's also lamenting and kind of sad of the evacuation as well, like the loss. There was a lot of loss and death while living on the island, and then eventually the island ended up kind of dying in a kind of human sense. There are still people that live on it, but temporarily. But in terms of the community, permanent community, that has now been lost as well. So she's in her tears. Actually, she's got a little boat of the last evacuation, people leaving, and then there's also a little baby in her tears. So yeah, this one's quite a sad one.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for sharing it with us, Jack. Ursula's just got a comment there. Great stuff. I totally
it's also yep. So yeah, and the exhibition's going to open next Tuesday evening at Shipping Brow Gallery in Maryport, 6 till 8, and then after that it's open for a month, Wednesday to Sunday. So hopefully people can come and catch it. And see
I feel like we all ought to club together and try and get you a ferry to St Kilda, probably a return ticket rather than just a single ticket. But we need to get you there, Jack, at some stage and see whether it's anything like how you are portraying it, and I suspect it very much is. And really interested to hear about the history of it as well. You've clearly done a lot of research and work on it. It's really interesting to hear about the history and the story behind the pictures as well.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And Tamashanta, that was the strange word I was looking for, strange phrase I was looking for. Thank you for confirming that as well. Just to go back to, I think Pete put a comment about the programme at Words by the Water. If that had come a bit earlier, I would have put that question to Leah about it all looks very white, middle-aged. Is there scope for a broader range of voices next year? It's a very good question, Pete, and no doubt that may come up in the wash-up of, if that is the case, that may come up in the wash-up of the meeting. So thank you for contributing that to the comment and the conversation as well. Thank you ever so much. Ursula's put an announcement in there about an open mic night. Thank you ever so much to Kate and to Leah, who's gone, and to David and Caddy, to tell us about that lovely animation, and to Jack about that fantastic exhibition taking place at the Shipping Brow. Really appreciate your time this morning. Next week, I'm not here next week. I am elsewhere. So Chris is in charge next week, and already you're going to hear about Amont 927, which is a celebration plans for some massive historic event that took place at Amont Bridge. Penrith. What was it, Chris? Was it
Amont Bridge? It kind of notionally marks the beginning of England as such. It's Ethelred became the king of the English.
And I think Westman and Furness, whose patch it is, are trying to put on something big for 2027, which is going to be next year. So we're going to hear about that. Anne is also going to tell us, Anne, who's on this call now, has got a beautiful exhibition. She's been the artist in residence at Rosehill. I think that's right, Anne, isn't it? Just outside Whitehaven. And Anne is going to come and tell us all about what's going on there, which should be very interesting. And also a new exhibition at Art Gene in Barrow. We're going to hear about that next week as well. So that is a plan so far. I won't be here, but of course I shall watch the recording. Good luck to everybody who's doing nice things this weekend and elsewhere. And I'm going down to see the unveiling of the new Hepworth sculpture at Abbott Hall in Kendal, which is taking place tomorrow afternoon at 2:00. Everyone's welcome, apparently. It's sort of been cleaned up, and it's been on a bit of a tour, and it's coming back to Abbott Hall. So that should be a nice thing to see on Saturday. And I think it's going to be a nice day tomorrow as well. So it'd be nice to be out and about. Good to see you all. Thanks for your time this morning. Thanks to Iona for pressing the buttons. Catch you all soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye all.